Greetings of peace. My name is Ra'im Hotep. I'm broadcasting on behalf of 13SignsAstrology.com. In this particular episode, I'm going to be dealing with a certain group of extraterrestrial beings that I mentioned in one of my last videos, which was dealing with what are the Anunnaki up to today. And I mentioned a group of extraterrestrial beings called the Deros. And I'm going to be dealing with them. And those of you, that tune into this channel, you already know basically on this channel, we cover a vast amount of topics, and we're getting ready to start covering more topics. And I know people are thinking like, well, this is supposed to be dealing with astrology, and you're getting it all into a whole bunch of other stuff. Well, really, when you deal with astrology, you really are dealing with your star heritage, and you're dealing with your history, which goes back to the stars. And when you start dealing with your history that goes back to the stars, you're going to get into looking at a lot of different alien races. You're going to get into spirituality. You're going to get into yoga. You're going to get into the Illuminati type of information. You're going to get into transformation. You're going to get into music. Astrology covers a lot of topics, because when you start talking about your heritage going back into the stars, that's a very long story. That's a very long story. This story is trillions upon trillions of years old, multiple trillions of years old or whatever, and the information is out there, it's documented. And the reason why I tend to I guess you could say connect with and deal with certain extraterrestrial beings and races, regardless to if they're malefic or benefic, is because of the fact that these different races, they have a lot of information. They have a lot of information. It's about information. It's kind of like you might not particularly like a certain group or a tribe or a gang or something in your neighborhood. You might not like this certain group of people in your neighborhood or whatever, but at the end of the day, you might still have to deal with this certain group in your neighborhood as far as on a business level or on a trade level, because they may have something that you may desire or want. It's just like even with the U.S. or whatever. The U.S. deals with a lot of different nations that, even though these aren't really nations, the U.S. is a corporation, but different corporations deal with other corporations, whether they're state type of corporations or whether they are corporations that are like your General Motors and things like that. Different corporations deal with other corporations for resources and things of that nature. And they barter with each other, and they may be in competition on certain levels, but at the end of the day, there's a general I guess you could say like a general agreement that they have with each other, as far as I'm going to respect you on this level, we're going to work on this level, and I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. This doesn't mean I trust you and you're my partner. It just means that they form kind of like an alliance, where they'll do business together. And it's basically like that. When you start talking about getting information from certain beings, you have to be willing to actually connect with them and form an alliance with them to get certain information pertaining to the history and our history that goes back to the stars or whatever. So, and us as humans, we have a lot of these beings mixed into our genetics, and the Deros are a group of these beings. Now, the Deros is a topic or a group of beings that was first introduced to America. They was first introduced to America by a guy named Richard Shaver, and a guy named Ray Palmer published Richard Shaver's story in a particular magazine back in like the 40s or whatever. So this is a concept, this is a group of beings that have been talked about in America before. I'm not the first person to bring out this information, and there was another brother by the name of dr.york that talked about the Deros as well. And basically most of his information, he went a little bit more in depth, because he talked about their history pertaining to the history that was documented about them within the Egyptian culture and within the Sumerian culture. So he kind of like brought it from that perspective. But Richard Shaver, he was in communication with these beings. Richard Shaver was in communication with these beings because they were channeling him. He was an auto mechanic. Richard Shaver was an auto mechanic, and these beings began to channel him and send him certain telepathic messages. Most of them were of a sexual nature, and I'll go into that, the reason why, in a minute, but most of them were of a sexual nature, and they began to send him messages, and this is how he found out about the Deros. Now, I'm not going to go too much into his story here or whatever. I'm just going to give the facts about the Deros based on my research. And then some of it comes from Ray Palmer. Other research comes from some Eastern sources, and and my other sources about this information comes through the Dr. Dr.york. A lot of information he put out about them. I've collected that information as well. The Deros are actually, the term Deros means detrimental robots. And the Deros actually were natives of Lemuria, and they started off as slaves, believe it or not, of the Anunnaki. The Deros were once slaves of the Anunnaki. And pretty much what happened was that when the Anunnaki had to leave the planet, which I talked about in that video that I did about what are the Anunnaki up to today, the Anunnaki had to leave the planet. When they left the planet, they left the Deros in the caverns and certain caverns that they occupied. They left the Deros there, so the Deros took over those caverns. They were basically free from their captivity from the Anunnaki. And there's other races too that the Anunnaki created, but this is a particular race that they created or whatever. And the Deros share some genetic traits with a lot of humans. They share some genetic traits with a lot of humans. A lot of humans that are over 300 pounds, believe it or not, have those particular humans that you see on television that they call a disease because these particular humans are just huge and they have like obesity problems and they're over 300 pounds. Well, most of these humans were descendants of the Deros. They have the same genetics as the Deros, and their dominant extraterrestrial genes are that of the Deros. And this is why they're like 300 pounds or whatever. So that's one particular aspect of them. Now, the Deros are very disagreeable. They're very disagreeable. They're responsible for like most of the wars that we have right now on the surface. Believe it or not, the Deros have strong telepathic powers, but they also have machines. They're very technologically astute. And I'm going to do a video on extraterrestrial technology really soon. But they have machines and rays, like guns or ray guns, and they can shoot this ray gun to the surface and cause humans to basically go crazy and turn into warrior-like attributes start to come out of humans or whatever, based on the fact that this ray gun is pointed at the surface or whatever, and they can point at any nation and cause lower vibrational humans, of course, because there's ways. That's why I talk about building up a psychic self-defense, because there's ways to block yourself from this, but it can cause humans to go crazy. And most of the wars and things that are being fought on the surface are being provoked by the Deros. They're provocateurs for a lot of these wars or whatever, and a lot of the weapons that are coming up missing even now. When I talked about the Anunnaki stealing weapons, the Deros are behind stealing a lot of these weapons because they got the technology to do it. And the Anunnaki are starting to channel the Deros again to send communications even to the Deros again. So the Deros, they don't like humans in general, period. You know what I'm saying? They don't like humans in general, period. Like, they want this planet for themselves or whatever. They're one of those type of groups. They're totally disagreeable when it comes to humans. But you know what I'm saying? They have, like I said, they got a lot of information because, I mean, they've been around longer than humans or whatever, and their technology is way more advanced. They learned their technological capabilities from the Anunnaki, and their technological sciences, they got that from the Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki are a master race when it comes to technology. Now, I'm not saying the Anunnaki is the end-all, be-all, and they're the highest beings, and no beings are more intelligent than the Anunnaki. I've never said that. I'm talking about humanoid type of species or whatever. The Anunnaki, they, hands down, I mean, they take the cake for humanoid type of species that has technology and just like far advanced when it comes to like working with equipment and technology and things of that nature. So that's where they come in at. But back to the Deros. Now, the Deros are sex addicts. They are sex addicts. They like to partake in orgies. They are strictly lower vibrational type of entities, and they have something called the STEM machine. And this STEM machine is called the STEM machine because it stimulates sexuality in human beings and in beings in general. And they can point a ray at you. Most of their technology is based on rays. They'll point a ray at you, zap you with this ray. You won't even feel it. Next thing you know, you're just all sexual and, you know what I'm saying, and things of that nature. And this is because the Deros are sex addicts and they thrive off of that or whatever. They feed off of that sexual energy or whatever. So they are fourth dimensional beings, so they can go in and out of the third or fourth dimension. Their third dimensional counterparts, like I said, are obese people that are over 300 pounds, that are not over 300 pounds based on them just having a food problem, but I'm talking about those people that were like genetically, they got like some type of genetic defect where they cannot lose weight. I forgot the particular medical term for it, but I want to call it obesity basically. And this is where basically a group of humans that just cannot seem to lose weight, and they can get like 500, 600, or 700 pounds. I mean, every human is not capable of getting 500, 600, or 700 pounds. So when you see a human being that's like that huge, that's something in their genetics, that's something in their DNA, and that goes back to the alien races. Like I said, there's 24 alien races that created us, and that goes back to that. So that's what that's dealing with or whatever. Now the Deros, they live in caves, and the actual fourth dimensional ones, they live in caves, and they are basically, they want to be cut off from all sunlight. They don't really like sunlight too much or whatever. So they live in caves that aren't really, that don't get a lot of sunlight or whatever, as far as the caverns that they live in the center of the earth. And they have an enemy, the Deros do. The name of their enemy, I'm going to do a video on them, so I'm not going to talk about them here, but the name of their enemy is the Teros. The name of their enemy is the Teros. So that's the Deros. I mean, they have like really long noses that look like elephant type noses. Some of them are melanated. They're dark. Some of them are dark as me. Some of them are albino looking. They're different. They come in different colors, shapes, and sizes, but they are detrimental robots. They were made to be disagreeable by the Anunnaki. They were used as a tool. They're like warriors or whatever, and they were used as a tool by the Anunnaki when they first start coming to this planet or whatever, and they were used to basically do work for the Anunnaki, but that didn't really go well. So when the Anunnaki left, they pretty much left them here. And the Anunnaki has created other beings that I'm going to talk about too in other videos, so I'm not going to go into that here. But these are interterrestrial beings. They definitely live in the center of the earth. And it's like people really need to get, you know what I'm saying, get into this information or whatever. They are, even to let you know, they talk about them before your boy Richard Shaver talked about them. They were talked about by the ancients or whatever, and the ancients called them the Seminim, the Seminim. That's what they were called by the ancients, and that's their Sumerian name, the Seminim. So I mean, they've been talked about. This is not something I'm making up. The shamans on this planet know about these things. This is not something that Richard Shaver made up. He was definitely being channeled by those beings or whatever, and they're definitely real. And you have to build up a psychic self-defense because they feed off of that lower sexual warrior type of energy or whatever. If your energy matches their vibration, they can cause you to do things. And then they do have counterparts and hybrids here on this earth that are humanoid hybrids. Like I said, these are your people that are over 300 pounds that basically they're addicts. They have problems or whatever. It's obesity, and it can be corrected. I mean, we're alchemists. So, I mean, me being a master, I'm an alchemist, so obesity could be corrected even in the Deros. It could be corrected, but it's very extremely hard when you deal with a being like that that's vibrating on such a lower level or whatever. They have to want to change, and most of the time they don't want to change. I mean, they just want to continue to do the things they want to do, eat their foods, you know, be gluttonous, you know, be sexual addicts and lay up in the bed all day and do all that type of stuff. There's a group of beings out there that do this type of stuff. I mean, and this is real. It's called the Deros, the Saminim is their ancient Sumerian name. And with that, I think that's going to do it for me. Until we meet again, I'm going to leave you in peace.